We have ridden the 2025 Merida eOne-Sixty LITE 675. LITE, of course, in Merida terms means it's the heavy bike. It's the alloy version. 675, 6 means it's the second most expensive, the second most well-equipped bike in the lineup. There's also the 875, which is the top of the line model. 675, so 75 means the 750 watt-hours battery. And it's a detachable battery, by the way. It seems it's a two-step design to detach the battery. First you lift this arm inside, and then there's this little pin that should be lifted up, and that's a bit hard, so I push the battery towards the bike. That should do it. Merida claim this bike weighs 25.6 kilos, 27.15 with pedals, so about 26.5 without pedals, which is 1 kilo more than Merida claimed. For an alloy bike with a big battery, yeah, sure, it's quite a bit of weight, but it's nothing extreme. That's what these bikes usually weigh. If you want a lighter bike, you should have a look at the Merida eOne-Sixty with a carbon frame. And Merida's reasoning is that if you want a lot of range, you'll accept a heavier bike because a big battery weighs more. And if you want a lighter, more nimble, playful bike, you'll accept a smaller battery because the carbon version only has a 600 or 630 watt-hours battery. So that's how it has to be. Lots of range, weighs more. If playfulness is your priority, you have to step down a bit on the battery size. So this test bike, the eOne-Sixty 675 in size large, it costs £5,500 British and 6,250 euros. Is that a lot? I have no idea. I mean, prices have been increasing for years, and now suddenly discounts are on the table again, and yeah, you have to check where you live with your stores and how it compares to the competition. But my immediate reaction is it's a decent price for a nicely spec'd bike. We have ridden the Merida eOne-Sixty 8000 previously, the 2020 model. It had the same fork, the Marzocchi Z1 bomber, and I really like this fork on the new Merida. It's been extended to 170mm travel, and I remember the Z1 as a bit progressive. It ramped up quite hard towards the bottom, so I usually remove the token. But on this fork, I quite like it in the default settings, so I'm not sure if the fork has been altered or if the characteristics has changed because of the slightly longer travel. And speaking of longer travel, up by almost 20mm, the rear end offers 174mm of travel. And that's in the mullet setup. That's the default configuration. For the first time, Merida now offers the possibility to flip a chip and convert to a 29er rear wheel. Then you'll drop the rear travel to 160mm. The dropper post is nice and long. It says it's adjustable between 35 and 230mm. I believe this one is 200mm by default for the size large. I mean size long. Merida renamed their sizing, so short, middle, long, and then you got extra short and extra long, indicating that the height of the bike doesn't change that much, and you can choose the bike based on the length of the bike that you prefer. The rear suspension is handled by what I assumed was a Fox Float X, and then I had a closer look at it, and it's another Marzocchi Bomber Air, and never struck me that it wasn't a Fox. It performed quite nicely. I really liked it. The brakes, they're a good choice, I think. The dual caliper Shimano Deore M6120. I can't help it. I like the Shimano brakes. I like the short lever and the lever feel. And the basic Deore ones, they're perfectly fine. It's a nice way of keeping the cost down on a bike, I think. Then there's the drivetrain. I'm so pleasantly surprised. It's got an 1143 teeth cassette, and that's not a lot. But I guess it's okay. Being a 27.5 rear wheel, that means you can get away with a slightly smaller cassette. Comparing it to a 29er bike, you would need to have like a 45 teeth cog to get the same gearing. It's the Shimano Deore Linkglide. I'm so happy Merida has decided to go with the fewer gears, more solid drivetrains. It's that way on all the Merida E160 LITE bikes. They got the top of the line has got the 11-speed Linkglide and all the way down to 9-speed on the cheaper ones. You get the gear ratio you need, you get a more durable chain, and the Linkglide system will shift under load, which comes in very handy with the new Shimano EP8 motor. Well, the motor isn't that new anymore, but the software is new. The 4.3.0 software brings motor overrun, if you wish. The assist carryover, as Shimano calls it, it's set to short by default, and the motor behaves pretty much like it always has. But now you can increase it to middle and long, and if you go long, you get what I believe is the maximum push or overrun that is allowed by law, and it's a lot. And I'm pretty sure it puts a bit of extra stress on the drivetrain. I always like the Shimano EP801. Nice and easy to control if you don't set the overrun to long, but it can be controlled even then, unless it's very slippery. Stepping it down to middle makes it a tad more easy to control and a tad more kind to the drivetrain, I believe. Looking at the geometry and comparing it to the old Merida E160 models, the rear center chainstay length is up by 6.5 millimeters. 446 millimeters is the new length. And sure, the shorter rear end was sort of defining the older Merida E160 versions. But I think it's a good thing that Merida stretched it a tad. It makes climbing easier, and also it increases the wheelbase. Along with the longer fork and the slacker head angle, which is now down to 64.4, you get almost 30 millimeters longer wheelbase at 1266 for the size L. And of course the C-tube angle is steep, as it should be these days, 78.3, 0.4, 0.5, depending on frame size. That's nice and steep. The geometry of the 2025 Merida E160 makes it look like a burlier bike. The older versions of the E160, with a short rear end, they always, to me at least, felt more like all-around trail bikes and a bit less like the enduro bike that you might expect it to be with 160mm travel. So, riding the bike, it definitely feels more enduro. The longer wheelbase, the increased travel, slacker head angle, yeah, this bike definitely is stable and composed on the descents. It's really capable. It has sacrificed a bit of the playfulness of the older models, and that's how it has to be when you make it a bigger, longer bike. And by doing that, they sort of made a bit more room for the Merida E140. So if you never wanted a burlier bike than the old E160, perhaps the new E140 is the bike for you. 150mm travel, 29er front and rear. I really like this one. I like the mullet setup. Even though it's a big bike, it doesn't feel that big. It doesn't feel very long, despite the 479mm reach. It feels, I don't want to say compact, but this size large. It's still a maneuverable bike, and it doesn't feel super long sitting on it. It climbs very well. It's less work keeping the front wheel planted, and now with the new motor and the overrun configuration, it's a great climber. I really like this compromise. But for the all-round trail riding, flatter trails, it's not like it's a sluggish bike. Sure, at low speed, rough sections, you will feel the steering is a bit heavier, the front end is a bit slower. But for a 160, 170mm EMTB full suspension, it's still quite fun and inspiring on the less demanding sections too. So, to sum it up, price seems okay. I really like the specs on this bike. There really isn't a thing I would change. If someone gave me a Burlier 38 fork, sure, I'll slap it on, but I think this setup makes sense, especially for the price. And Merida has taken the eOne-Sixty deeper into the enduro segment, which of course means it's less of that nimble all-mountain style trail bike, and I think that's a good choice. And compared to the existing 25-26 kilos 160mm travel EMTBs, it's not a more sluggish, slower handling bike. You might think 170mm travel is a lot, and sure, it's a generous amount, but it's not like the eOne-Sixty is a very slow, heavy bike in low speed, sharp turns, all mountain riding. And I think the Merida eOne-Sixty really is becoming the bike I always wanted it to be. More burly, more stable, still plenty maneuverable and playful. I really can't wait to test the carbon version to see what taking off 2-3 kilos perhaps does for the nimbleness and the handling. But I had a lot of fun on this heavier 675 Model 2. Good job, Merida. That's it. Appreciate any likes and subscribes. Thanks for watching.